Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to our honors thesis final showcase session this week. I have Dr. Sarah Levins with us, who is the Director in Psychology of the Honors Program, and Angel Rogers and Shayna Ferris, both students who are currently working on their honors thesis projects. So we are eager to hear from the three of you, and we're eager to hear from the rest of you students in terms of questions that you have and clarifications that you could use, and whatever we can do to kind of encourage you to follow up on thinking about doing an honors thesis. So Dr. Levins, whenever you want to kind of get us started, and let me know, I can also post some information, screen share with some information about the honors program that we have online. That's entirely up to you if that's helpful to you or not.
Oh, no, I think this will be fun. So I'll actually just go through quickly and give a couple of, just some basic information that students may not be readily aware of. So the honors program is just one, it's departmental honors. There's over 20 departmental honors on campus. And there's also university honors. So you'll actually have some students who are at the university honors and in departmental honors. And departmental honors, the main things you want to know for psychology is that you need a capstone to graduate, and your honors thesis series of courses can be your capstone. And so for the honors thesis, it is 2 semesters, and students will either do it all in their senior year, or they will do it in their junior, start in their junior year and finish in their senior year. I need to ask you a question. Sweetheart, I'm in the middle of, yeah, you need to wait a couple of minutes. So a moment in my life. Usually when she sees people on the screen, she just like walks right away. So let me get a second to get my train of thought back again. Yeah, so you can have, it's a two sequence of classes, and I actually recommend to all students and faculty to start it in the spring semester of your junior year. This means that you have a much longer time frame, so you can start in your junior year. You have the summer, which is like a flex point that you can use to be working on your honors project. It's a really ideal time to be doing CRS, which is the Charlotte Research Scholars. So there's a number of internship opportunities on campus that you can leverage and kind of build together with your honors project. And then you have your the second semester in the fall semester of your senior year. This puts you in line with the conference circuit, that you have your honors thesis pretty much done by the time you are applying to graduate school, and then you are not battling senioritis and you're completing your honors thesis in the final semester of your tenure at UNCC. Many students, again, take longer than 4 years, so even you can still adjust this timeline, but these are just sort of some of the elements to be aware of. All of the requirements, as Dr. Kira are illustrating, are on line, so you can take a look at those. One of the things that is more that students need to understand is you need to have a mentor to be in the program. So the mentor will guide you through the specifics of your honors thesis. I provide a structure, a cohort structure. I answer questions. I provide sort of roadmaps and guidelines. We do some activities as an honors cohort. We talk about various elements of research. And so I'll let Angel and Shayna tell you a little bit more about that. But really there's sort of the heart of the honors thesis is the mentor-mentee research relationship and project. And so for that, you want to identify a research mentor, approach them, and one of the best ways to do that is start working in their lab ahead of time. And there's all sorts of ways, and so many students will reach out and be like, I want to do honors, and then it's like, okay, you have to get a mentor. So we talk about where the best ways to do that based upon where they're at in their program, who they have good relationships with. So that is a very individualized process, and I can answer any questions. And when you are on honors, you will also have access to registration benefits. So you get priority registration. And so that can be really helpful for any of your getting into advanced classes that you are particularly keen on. You also have access to funds that can be, assuming that you apply early enough, that you can use to travel and present at conferences. So there are a number of benefits associated with honors. Depending on the project and what it would need, your research mentor also has access to funds to, if you need materials, or something that specific in terms of conducting research. So there's a number of resources through the honors program. And I think that's the basics. I can go in depth about any number of things, but I will actually open it up to questions and also just giving Angel and Shayna the opportunity to talk about some of their honors experiences thus far.
And maybe do you two kind of want to walk us through your process? Because I think Dr. Levens laid it out clearly, but students want to hear, wait, but who did you send an email to? So from maybe, I mean, from more or less the first email to whatever lab to the honors, or whatever order you went in, I think would be helpful for students to hear.
So the first person I had messaged actually wasn't able to be my mentor, because she apparently does graduate work, which I didn't know. But I've taken some classes with her and TA for her, so I felt comfortable asking her. But she recommended someone else I reach out to, Dr. Blanchard. And so I messaged her talking about what I found interesting about her work, my credentials, and referrals, or my referral from Dr. McGonigal. And we had a short conversation, and she told me to apply and accepted me, which is pretty awesome. So I think if you're ever looking at what you want to do, searching through all of the people who have research labs and kind of picking one or two people that you really are interested in, and then emailing them and making sure that you talk about what you like about their work and why you're qualified to work with them.
And Angel, I may pause you a minute, since we just did get that question, and that's a good question for transfer students. Again, and Angel was a transfer student, so for Angel, Angel, you started on this process actually this year, is that correct? Because I just had you in the class in the spring, right? In research methods. Yeah. So Angel is in her senior year and started in the fall here with honors thesis, and a way of connecting. So I'm on the department main website right now, Department of Psychological Science. If you go to people, and if you flip on any one of us, usually we'll have at least our basic information for how to contact us. And then we'll have, this part gets a little hit or miss, but some information about lab or research or that sort of thing. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, here we go. So Dr. Levens has a little bit of more information there. You can get to her website here. And then Cognition Lab.
You say your chat out of the way?
I'm sorry?
Oh, your chat's in the middle of
it,
right?
I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Oh no, wait, that's me. I'm an idiot.
Sorry.
I thought I tried to move it and it didn't work, so I was like, oh, never mind.
No worries. Is that makes sense though? So you may, depending on the faculty member, you may go through a number of clicks because we have things set up a little bit differently. But the people page will get you to at least how to kind of initially contact faculty and that sort of thing. And yeah, I agreed. It's a little tough this year, and we know it from our end, and as well, faculty have been saying we're not sure how we're going to recruit students for different opportunities and things like that, because we're all struggling to kind of get to know each other. So don't be shy. Emails can make a difference, and especially a well-presented email. So if you say hello, I've had a chance to look at some of your information on your website. I'm interested in doing some sort of project, maybe even being in your research lab. if you want to really impress us, here's my resume or something like that, or a few words about why you're interested in their lab, just to kind of warm it up and get it started, or working on honors. I think those kinds of emails would go a long way with faculty, right?
Yeah. And one of the things I would do is I would actually start with having a conversation. You know, you don't necessarily have to sort of bring up like I wanted, you know, the commitment piece, you know, in the first email. Like, look, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about your research, because faculty range in terms of how frequently they do honors thesis projects, and some of them that do them more frequently. Some of them do it less frequently, and a lot of it is really based upon the student. And so if you make that connection first of like, look, here's some of the things that I'm interested in. I'm interested in potentially working in your lab and volunteering, and, you know, do you have any positions open? Then that starts the process sort of being more like of a joint experiential thing, and not necessarily just like, hey, I just want to do an honors thesis. That has that comes with trying to figure out the best way to say it, because all honors thesis projects are really unique, and students have expectations about them. Sometimes what'll happen is the students will be like, I want to do an honors thesis project on X, and they have the project all defined. So I want to investigate this, and they will just reach out to faculty to be like, who will support me at this? That is actually something that's really challenging, because you want to find a match between your interests and the faculty members', you know, research. And so the best way is actually to really start with the shared interests, and then see what, you know, and this is an analogy that I gave yesterday in terms of talking in my lab. It's like, oh, look, each faculty has a buffet, and the buffet that they offer in terms of their research, and give them the opportunity to sort of present the buffet. And really, you want to find, it may not be the exact project that you would necessarily envision, because it's actually really difficult to kind of say, oh, we'll just do this whole project that is not related at all to something that I have ongoing. That's actually a very challenging thing for faculty members to do. But if you find those shared interest points, like, oh, here, I like this and this and this on your buffet, let's do a project with that, then you have intrinsic motivation on both sides, from the student and from the faculty. So So I really recommend just sort of talking about the things that you're interested in, talking about what you'd like to do for graduate school, you know, some of those types of things, and that's how faculty will start to think about a match for a student. Send those out in emails, reach out to them about just working in their lab first. Some faculty will be like, I primarily only do honors thesis with students that are existing in my lab. And then you can be like, well, that's great. I'm interested in that. I really just want some research experience. So there's multiple ways to approach it. And it's fairly individualized. And I'm always available for consultation on the best way to do that. Based on everybody's unique circumstances. So if you have any questions, then you can email me. One final note before I'll pass it back to the students is that aside from looking at the research page, you can think about the professors that you've had in class, form relationships with them through the classes. One of the things that can be challenging with students when they start to say, oh, I want to do a project and get involved in research, is that they've only had faculty and online courses. So that makes it a lot more difficult to form connections. And so sometimes taking in-person classes can be highly advantageous when you want to have that more connection piece and get more involved. So I definitely recommend leveraging those. And then you can also ask your fellow students, like, who have you really enjoyed? I'm interested in this. You know, do you have any idea on who has some experience in that? Because we do tend to teach the classes that align with our general knowledge base. So the classes that instructors teach is also a really great way to gauge shared interest.
Danny, you had a question?
Hey, how is everyone doing? Yes, I do have a quick question. So let's say that this project is very beneficial since it's an honors project for your thesis and for your last year before you graduate. in any case that you decide to take like a gap in between, like once you get your bachelor's and you know that you want to achieve your master's and perhaps like a higher level of education and doctorates and so on. But let's say that you decide to take a gap year and just work. Hopefully after you graduate from UNCC, you do find a job somewhat related to what you studied, and you take a gap year until you go to your master's and save up a little bit. What are the benefits of having of being a participant in this honors project? And also, I have another question. So I'm a transfer student and I'm working on my GPA. What are the possibilities of me getting into the program for like next semester, or it will have to be for like my last year at UNCC, like the senior year?
So those are both really great questions. So I'll answer the GPA one first. For the GPA requirements, you have to be able to sort of, really be able to attain that possibility. And I'm not completely sure how the GPA might be counted in terms of if there's a difference between the GPA from from a prior institution versus GPA at UNCC. But you have to kind of have that option to it. The worst thing that could theoretically happen is, and that, say you get into the honors program and you're there and you're working and you have your, and this isn't really a bad thing, but like, or I should say one possibility is that you're in there, you have your mentor, you're going along, you like your research and you're enjoying that part, but you weren't able to sort of recover your GPA enough, to kind of meet that threshold for what's required for graduating with honors. What that would basically mean in that circumstance is that you wouldn't necessarily graduate with honors, but you would still have your honors thesis and you would still have your capstone completed. So you've met all of your graduation requirements just fine, but you might not have sort of the honors necessarily on your transcript, but you'd still have your honors thesis, you'd still have a really fantastic letter for graduate school, and you'd have all that experience that you'd be able to talk about that would prepare yourself. And you would, your GPA while you were there in the honors class and here at UNCC is going to speak much louder than prior GPAs or sort of from a prior major or anything like that. Because we have psychology, we have lots of transfer students from outside of UNCC, and we have lots of transfer students within UNCC from other majors. So this is actually something that happens quite a bit. And there's a number of things that you can do to kind of work on for your GPA. So as long as you are, passing and getting the grades that you need for some of the required classes, like Research Methods 2, then you're in a good shape. One thing to note is that you do need to take the research version, the research intensive version of Research Methods 2, not the consumer version of Research Methods 2. And I can't remember I just can't remember off the top of my head the two differences in the classes. It's like what,
2103 and 2104. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
You want 2103, and 2104 is not going to be as preparatory. Right. So you want to take 2103, and then
follow the title of the. Sorry, Sarah. Basically one class is called Research Methods 2. That's the one you want to shoot for, which is what Dr. Levins is saying. 2103. The other class is called Critical Thinking in Research.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, we used to have the different versions. Yeah, I'm really glad to know about that naming switch. That's very helpful.
Yes.
So, and then in answer to your other question, there's actually a number of things. Taking a gap year can be really beneficial, and your honors thesis can actually be a really great way to have that gap year be something that's a lot more streamlined. I've had many times in the past where students have wanted to actually take a year off, and if because they've done their honors thesis with me or they're working in my lab, then I actually just let them keep on working in the lab as a volunteer while they are also doing some of their work. And so then they have on their CV, they can just actually say research assistant, for that year afterwards. And it's not necessarily a huge time commitment at that point because they've already been in the lab for a while. They know all the ropes. And so it's usually, we kind of come to an agreement, that is totally individualized based on the student. And then they have that continuity piece. And that can be really helpful. It's not at all necessary because gap years are becoming more and more common, but what's most necessary is for you to sort of maintain a good relationship with your faculty, your letter writers during that time. But the honors thesis is oftentimes, because like we have Shayna and Angel right now, it's been traditionally done in the senior year, and we're trying to sort of shift it a little bit earlier because of some of those benefits, but many people still do it in the senior year. So they're still working with their mentors after that, the end of the spring semester of their senior year, to maybe work on turning their honors thesis into a publication, or they're finishing out some sort of lab project that moves into the summer and potentially beyond. And so you have those pieces that naturally will transcend graduation date, and so that your gap year doesn't have to be something that is very abrupt.
If everyone is okay with it, I have two more questions regarding. One is, okay, so I understand that for you to graduate with honors, it will have to be a 3.2. But what is the exact requirement as GPA wise to enter the program? I don't think I read it on the previous.
There's not an exact GPA requirement to enter it. You have to have gotten, and I'll wait till she sort of navigates back to it so I can, yeah. So you have to have, again, it's really like you have to have 3.2 or be close enough to 3.2 to reasonably confident in achieving it by graduation. It is literally that. So there's not anything more, beyond that. So that you can sit there and be like, okay, if I got these grades and this grades and this grades, you the classes that you have left at that point, then you can sort of say, okay, reasonably, this is in the realm. And I have worked with students that have had GPAs that are lower. I happen to have a student that I oversaw as my honors thesis. He'd been in my lab, and he just, he really struggled in terms of finding his path, but he was amazing. And he also really struggled because he had ADHD and identified as LGBTQ and African American, and that was sort of like a really challenging, mixture in terms of, and so we did his honors project, and he did an amazing honors project, but he was interested in the experience and not just sort of the label of honors. And so the honors thesis, the real goal is to figure out if research is one of the things that you want to do as part of your undergraduate graduate training. And it's all about that. If you go through that and you're just like, you know what, I've had a really interesting time, I figured out that research isn't for me, that is totally okay. You've learned something like that you need to learn for how you want to continue your studies, and you've learned that before you've committed to a multi-year graduate program. Or you're figuring out, as I believe Shayna is, like, that I've heard, she's like, I love research. This is super cool. I like research way more than I thought I would, which is actually what most people, and this is going to be really neat. And then you find out that they're way more prepared for some of the research aspects of graduate school because they've done their honors thesis. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Oh wait, here, if Donnie, if you have a question, otherwise, you can have if you want to ask your question, but then Shayna, if you wanted to chat a little bit, some of your.
Great. That's really interesting because, yeah, that gives you the opportunity to decide like what you really want to be and if you fit for the criteria. The other question I was going to ask, I really, really want to do a study abroad for one semester or at least a summer semester. I'm not really sure if I'll be able to because I only have 2 more years in UNCC, and with the pandemic and everything, it's a mess. But I'm guessing this program will kind of allow me to more opportunities directly to study abroad, perhaps, maybe?
So study abroad, you'd have to just think about, I think if you were open to doing summer opportunities for study abroad, you'd be in a very strong position. I was going to lead a summer abroad program last summer that got, was full, got called off.
We both were, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, oh, so I totally feel you on that point. And I've had And I had a student who's doing her honors thesis with me right now, Andrea. She actually delayed some of the start of her honors thesis to give time for her to do, a study abroad. The pandemic is what makes parts of this really challenging because of all of the travel and things like that. So, and again, it really depends upon you, but there are, it is a 2-semester program, so if you're summer, it's like just totally clear. You can be like, hey, if like if things are good, next summer, I know that they have study abroad stuff that's open, you could be looking for things that you would be doing next summer. You could also be looking for, they have spring semester, they have a spring semester, they have
like a spring break,
spring break where they
a
do
week long or 10-day.
Like that, right? So those are options. You can theoretically, when you do your 2 semesters, it is a little bit flexible, so you could, for example, say, okay, I'm going to start, in the spring, and I'm not going to finish in the fall semester. I'm actually going to go ahead and finish in the following spring semester because I'm going to take fall abroad. That is possible, but it is primarily if, Maria Carla, you are still on sharing your screen. Just want to let you know.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
But that's really something that your mentor would have to sort of like agree to, and it would really depend upon the type of project that you have. If it's something that can be done. If you're working with existing data, it's a lot more flexible. If you really want to collect your own data, then that's a bit of a different process in terms of how you would coordinate that with your mentor.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Shayna, you want to chat a little bit?
Sure. I would just like to add that developing a relationship with a professor definitely takes initiative, and for lack of a better word, a little bit of cyber stalking. Most professors have publications. I definitely start there, read them. I think you'll just get a lot more out of a relationship with a professor by working with a professor that has shared interests. As for me, I started in Dr. Montanero's lab, and then I continued with CRS last summer, and that's where I realized that research was definitely something that I wanted to do. And I also liked the data that Dr. Montanero had. So working on an honors thesis was kind of the next step for me. And then also just to add, as for GPA, my GPA is not the best, but when it comes to, wanting a future career, like as a researcher and getting my doctorate, I think getting more research under my belt would be more beneficial for me. So taking a gap year and working in research is not a bad idea. That's what my plan is. So yeah.
You actually bring up an excellent point in terms of the types of things that you can do during your gap year. It's very, very common for students to actually look for like research oriented positions if they're really interested in graduate school. So, and I have one of, like working with an honors, having a close relationship with faculty member, whether it's through honors or just through working in your lab, is actually one of your best access points to those. So for example, a couple of years ago, I had a student that she had worked in my lab, she'd done her honors thesis, she was spectacular, she was moving to Michigan. And so I was like, oh, wait, I happen to know a faculty member at at one of the universities nearby. And I emailed her on her behalf and said, look, I have this student, she's really stellar. If you have any room in your lab or even volunteer, I think would be a really great opportunity for her. And she interviewed and she loved it. And she'd worked, in the whole, in multiple labs in Wayne State for 3 to 4 years. And now she's back here getting her PhD in counseling. And so, there's some really great research opportunities, and we get notices all the time as faculty, like research assistant positions open, And so you can go find those on various societies and all sorts of things, but that's something that you don't really quite know how to do on your own, but we do. And we can go ahead and then set you up to say, like, look here, you've done this. We have an idea of your skills. We would be writing letters in support of those positions. And so depending upon your interest, you can take a gap year that is really focused on developing your skill set in terms of preparation for graduate school, while also saving some money. Or you can be like, look, I also just really need a mental gap year, in which case, you can go ahead and, say, instead of studying abroad, I'm just going to go ahead and spend some time abroad, and have it, be, it's all about finding your own path. So, and there's multiple ways to get there. So, I'm happy to help with any of, sort of like decision points that I can, and point you in directions. And then, but, faculty, when you form relationships with it, we are a resource here for you guys. Yeah. Any other questions?
And I'll just, as I'm moderating the time, I'll say I kind of gave this session some flexibility, half an hour to an hour, depending on students' needs and questions. We're at 35-minute mark. And again, that doesn't mean anything other than I'm just trying to keep track for all of us and what other scheduling needs that we have. But by all means, if you still have questions to answer or ask and for us to answer, please let us know.
Dr. Kira, would you mind taking off the screen share? Because
I'm happy to do that.
Everybody on the same, then it's helpful. Okay, great. Because then I can see everybody on, and then I won't necessarily have to scroll through. And then if you need to check your email.
No. Yeah, no, I have giving exams, so there's some emergency.
So yeah, does anyone have any questions at all? You can. One of the, I can tell you a little bit more. I mean, one of the basic things I can tell you for the class, because the honors class is sort of like a semi-structured class. And so it is, we usually meet Tuesday mornings, and it's sort of, we have a Tuesday morning session that we meet, and the rest of it is sort of like more independent, because you're going to be expected to do independent time with your faculty member in terms of doing research. And so during those in-person sessions, then I sort of have check-ins with students. We occasionally have students that great, I have another class that I'm required to take during this honors thesis time. So we do have time conflict overrides. So that's not something that is a deterrent. We have to sort of check in with the mentor more, make sure that that you're getting the support that you need. I provide, as the program director, I provide the support for the students and for the mentors. Filling people in on terms of deadlines, requirements, and things like that. And we also have a lot of fun in some of our conversations, just talking about all sorts of different types of research and psychology related topics. And it's been particularly nice this semester. Hopefully Angel and Shana will agree to have some of that sort of personal connection time. And we have, you form an honors cohort. You can talk with people and get support from the other people that are going through the honors process as well.
I was actually going to talk about that it's really nice to have peers that kind of bond and get to talk. So I really like that part, the social aspect as well.
I do too.
Do you mind sharing the requirements or that page that you had on the screen before?
Oh, put the link in the chat.
Yeah.
Would you be able to? Yeah. That's probably the best thing, because then she can, you can peruse it at your leisure. But honestly, if you look up honors and psychology in UNCC, it will take you directly to the page. Honestly, that's when I need to go and sort of check something, or if I'm looking at something, that's usually how I get there. I just go into the Google search bar and put in honors psychology in UNCC.
And actually, just to let students know, I will be sending out a follow-up email to all students again, with lots of links and all the YouTube videos and all kinds of good resources. So there'll be opportunities to kind of follow up with some of that information as well.
Yeah. And when you are interested, there's actually like there's a short application that you fill out online. It just takes you to a brief Qualtrics survey. You would put in your name, some of your basic information, you know, what grades you got, and sort of research methods too. We know that students, particularly transfer students, often have different sort of time elements. In terms of when they're trying to do courses, generally we prefer that you'll have research methods 2 and then honors, but it is possible in some circumstances to co-enroll in research methods 2 and honors 1 at the same time. And though it's not the most ideal, but it works okay. There's just a couple of stipulations that we like, okay, you cannot do the same project that you do for research methods 2 as your honors. So there's a couple of basic things like that, but we try to really be inclusive in terms of if people want the honors experience. It's really sort of like how we can do it. And the one part that is the most challenging is just finding a faculty member to agree to work with you. We are hoping, there's a couple of routes that I've been thinking about for expanding the honors sort of process beyond sort of what it is right now, but those are things that are going to be further in the future. But that's if you can really start thinking about professors and email ahead of time. You're like, hey, I want to sign up, like in spring. Don't just be like, okay, if you are interested in starting honors in the spring, then you actually want to reach out to professors now. Look for people, and you can start working in their labs even right now. Like, oh, is there anything I can help with right now? It might not be the most exciting things because we're doing things remote, but it shows your dedication, your interest, enthusiasm, and those are the things that faculty look for in terms of saying, oh yes, this is someone that I'll work with, yeah.
I would also just like to add that I found out about Dr. Montanero's lab through an email from the department. I think it was Dr. Chiarella. So I would definitely pay attention to those. The website is, I think it's updated pretty regularly, so I would look into that as well. And also there was something else I wanted to add, but I'm blanking. I can't remember. You might have to just come back to me.
I did have one question. Like, for example, Dr. LR, I'm pretty familiar with like what she's been doing in her research, but of course she's in Alabama right now. So I don't know, like, how would it work with faculty like that? Like, do they still have labs here at UNCC, or is that all virtual?
Oh, no, I mean, she still has a lab, but she'll be back soon.
Okay.
She hasn't moved to, back to Alabama. She's just, there's a number of, like based on some of the unique elements of COVID, people are sort of like where they'll need to be or for certain family reasons and things like that. But she is, she's active in all of her research and, in all of her lab. And any research that we do right now has to be more remote. So for example, some of the research projects that I'll be starting in my lab in terms of data collection all involve remote data collection. So it's not at all problematic to start, doing research at this time, depending upon the types of projects that they have going on, but some of the things that are frequent that you might start with, especially to orient yourself to research in a lab, is to conduct a literature review on a particular topic that you're interested in, the stuff that they do. You might help with certain, data analysis, data organization, transcribing, like research interviews or something like that. There's all sorts of things depending upon the project. Coding, it all depends on the data that you're working on, the types of data that you're working with, and that varies greatly by professor. So if some remote data collection will be using MTurk, in which people are completing surveys and participating in experiments online. Others are conducting interviews online, doing intervention work. So it all varies a lot. And Dr. LR is relatively new. She's amazing. So if you're really interested in a faculty member, I would, and you're like, even if you're thinking about honors for, next fall, still start now. Like everything, the sooner you start and get involved in research, the easier it is. And it's a lot of fun. You get to, really, go in depth on a project with a faculty member, have some real one-on-one time. And so normally when you're in a lab, even a close-knit one, you're really interacting a lot through lab meetings. But when you move to your honors thesis, then you have the chance for one-on-one meetings. You get to have more conversations. They get to know you better. You get to know them better. The letters that you can write to support someone are infinitely deeper, just because of how well you'll get to know someone through that whole research and honors process.
Sarah, if I can interrupt you just a second, excuse me. There's a student asking, and I think we've mentioned it a couple of times more in initials than in spelling out what it was. But if you could talk to us a little bit about the
Charlotte Research Scholars.
Charlotte Research Scholars, CRS, yes, please.
So Charlotte Research Scholars, you should actually be on the lookout for that. So that's a it might be, some of the announcements might be slightly delayed this year because of COVID. Usually in the fall is when, but it's basically a summer research opportunity, and it's designed for students to get sort of early an introduction to research with various professors on campus. It is not just in psychology, it's across the whole university. And they will give you a stipend for working on the project fairly full time. It does have requirements in terms of that you need to, the time that you need to dedicate, but you get paid. So it's a very, very advantageous position. And it's not necessarily aligned with honors. So so it just happened that Dr. Montanaro had, she had a sort of a project that was affiliated with the CRS program that Shayna sort of applied for and participated in, and then she's sort of building on some of that with her honors. They are separate, but many students actually leverage them. So the way it works is faculty are given the opportunity to sort of say, okay, look here, I have a project that I would like to mentor a student. So the faculty agree ahead of time, I will be mentoring a student. They submit, a description of the project, and that will then, that the students then who apply to the program read all of the project descriptions that are available to them. And they'll read them all, and then they'll apply their information. They'll have some of, talk about some of their, and it's geared towards first time sort of research experience. So they really want to bring more people into research, particularly, individuals with backgrounds that have less experience in it. So you'll have your sort of application side, then you'll go through and read all of the faculty sort of project statements, and then you will select some of the ones that you are interested in and rank them. And then they'll go through and do basically a matching process. And it is advantageous, for Shana, it's oh, I had just started in the lab, this would be a really great opportunity to really dive deeper into research. And if they know already that there's an open, relationship, an existing relationship between the student that's interested in the faculty member, that can be advantageous, but it's not at all required. I've participated in CRS multiple years, and sometimes I'll be oh, here, someone has selected me, and I get to know a whole new student, and that student has started work through and being involved in my lab through the CRS project. And as a psychology major, you can be looking at psychology projects, or you could be looking at other projects across campus. It's not necessarily, dependent on psychology. Psychology is very interdisciplinary, and we have many people that are doing, double majors and minors and stuff like that. I've even had someone who was a psychology minor get their honors in psychology because they were a public health major and a psychology minor, and the public health department did not have honors. And so because they happened to work in my lab as a research assistant, there's, with double majors, you can choose which department you want. If you want to do honors, you can do it, theoretically you can do it in both, so most people choose one. So definitely look into Charlotte Research Scholars. You probably get an announcement about it in the beginning of the spring semester, so look for those. And I'm not sure, I can't remember how they're distributed, but again, it would be one of the things that would come through. It would be sent out to all of the undergraduates, and then and then Dr. Chiarella and others would draw special attention to it through follow-up emails. I know you guys got some other questions.
just for the sake of tracking our time, we're at about 12:48. But again, I have a little more time. Anyone else?
I scheduled the full hour just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, if anyone has any more questions about the program, you can reach out to me at any time. I definitely, I can always schedule like an independent or sort of a private Zoom chat. Sometimes it's easier, especially because even if students were interested, I'd be like, pop in my office. It's a lot easier to kind of explain some stuff in person through, just back and forth email. And so I can give you advice in terms of some of the best strategies for connecting with faculty if you're sort of starting off on the fly. And so, and it might even be easier to schedule a quick Zoom chat than, we can meet on Zoom for 15 minutes as opposed to the 20 minutes that it will take me to like do all of the emails back and forth, and you'll probably get even more information. So I am totally open to, to those access points. And I'm here to help introduce you guys to honors and to just research and connecting with faculty.
When are you available to do that?
So Brianna, that you would have to you would have to email me, and we would just set up a time. We would find some time that works for both of our schedules, because my schedule is all over the place. I was teaching my brain and behavior accelerated session is over, so I'm going to be adjusting my office hours, and I haven't figured out like, okay, if I'll have a new office hour time when that would be, and since I don't have that course will be done, there's no way for me to distribute it. So now at this point it's like, okay, whenever you email me and we'll find a time, and if I get an email from a couple of students, then I'll actually see if I could schedule something for 2 of you guys, because you'll probably find questions that one you're like, oh wait, I wouldn't have thought to ask that question, and it can be really helpful to have sort of those smaller yet really individualized meetings as well.
Yeah, I just sent out I just sent out Dr. Levin's email through the chat, and Danny had a question a moment ago, her hand raised, but Brianna, I don't mean to cut you off either. So
yeah,
I was just saying I sent Dr. Levin's an email, so whenever she has the time.
Yes, yeah, I haven't had a chance to go through a catch up from everything yesterday. And I tell you, it can take me a little while. I can tell you one thing right now, I am pushing to try to get through everything, but I am finding myself getting more behind on emails, and that's probably so I have to sit down like one day and just be like, all right, this is going to be an email day, but I will catch up on those. I definitely have not forgot about it, so don't worry about that. So we can definitely talk about, so that was for lab research, we can talk about that. And if you have additional honor stuff, then we can schedule a separate email. We can have that in the same conversation, or, so I'm open to either option.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And Danny, did you have a question?
Yes. So I know it's probably too early, but I saw a message on an email that next semester is probably going to be online as well, that we will have like a small percentages, probably just like this 20% on campus, the rest will be online. Mm-hmm. So that being said, are like the labs for the honors, if we decide to apply for next semester, are we going to have like virtual labs, and our Sims are going to be like directly through the computer as this semester, or are we going to be physically on campus more? Do you know?
Yeah, so the lab portion of research, that is entirely connected with your mentor. So that how the mentor will be doing, research is how you would be doing research with them. There are some people that, may start to come back to transition to do some type of, in-person work. Maybe they're not working within people, but maybe they're going to be going into the lab to like Dr. Bennett has a wet lab. Maybe she's going to be going in and working with some of the students to, to give some of the training on wet lab, procedures and techniques. So that is, so that all of the research sort of part of honors is really tied with the mentor. I provide sort of the structural piece and sort of broader assistance and monitor and sort of regulate the program and help you get connected with those people. For the honors class, that will most likely stay the way we have it right now, where we actually meet Tuesday mornings. The class is from 8:30 to 9:45. And so we meet every Tuesday morning, and then we have check-ins where we talk about projects, and we just talk about research. We talk about society. We talk about psychology. We talk about scientific literacy. We talk about anything and everything that sort of draws us in. We've talked about, like unique, we happen, to, on a couple of calls, to have all females. Then that gives us time to actually talk about some of the things that are specific for women in science and what it's like in terms of work-life balance. How do you do this stuff in terms of being a mom? And so that's, those are the types of things that we can have these types of conversations with your mentor, and you can also have them in the smaller group setting that we have with honors that that you can't have in larger class settings. So we have a lot of sort of shared experience sessions. And so we meet over Zoom, and it looks very much like we're doing right now. And then when people want to have more individualized talks, I actually go and have a breakout room, and then everybody else stays here and chats and and has this sort of strong connection point. And so, and then there's other times like last week, we're like, okay, we're gonna have set aside time, and we all actually just sat down on our computers and worked on parts of our project while we were there with each other, on Zoom. And it was kind of nice. We would check in, and you'd look up and be like, wait, we're all here working, but then you're there. So there's sort of a new way of being everything right now is really challenging, but it's also about finding opportunities for being present with each other. And so I definitely really lean into that and sort of saying, okay, honors, it's really meant to be an experience, and it's going to be unique for each person based on the lab that they're with and the trajectory that they're on and the path but we're going to always figure out how to have these shared research experiences and be present together. And we have over the years had some really great impromptu conversations with the cohorts, and it varies every single time based on who's in the cohort. So that part will be the same. And then the nice thing is when you start for Honors 1 is all about your proposal. That's the research that you want to do. In Honors 2, then you have to then you're saying okay, I have to follow through and finish the proposal. I have to do the research. So if next semester is more remote, you're going to be working on proposing and writing down what you want to do. Bye, Angel, thank you. But then you have the summer and you have the fall to do it. To when things are going to be more present, you're going to be more present. So it is something that, we're not going to be where we are right now for forever. It is a transient time. It's just a long transient time.
Yeah.
I would like to add or you can go ahead, Danny.
It's okay.
Well, my CRS experience was actually online. And now the lab that I'm working on is completely online. I'm running participants over Zoom, which is super weird. But I think it's a good thing. And that's why I think getting involved in a lab or doing an honors thesis or CRS or whatever, getting involved in it right now is a really good thing in a way, because I think learning to work in this way online will be really beneficial later on. I think parts of this online world that we're in right now will be the future. Hopefully not forever, but I think it's you're gaining a lot of tools that you'll use later by participating.
Oh, absolutely.
I wanted to add it to what you said. I honestly, I do not like online classes at all. But
we don't either.
Yeah, but I'm very skeptical about the virus, especially for my mother. So when next semester, even though that there's probably a higher chance of going on campus, I'm not really sure if that's what I want or if I want to stay online, just because my mom is high risk. So I really think what's going to happen if we go on campus and there's going to be, the people who live on campus and everything, you don't really know what's going on. So I know UNC is still making decisions, and I just want to see what will be the best benefit. And I cannot imagine how a lab and an honors project will be online too, because I bet it will be very difficult to handle. But I'm guessing based on the support that you guys offer, it's probably going to be very easy going.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, you can totally do research online. I mean, I have active grants and stuff right now where we're collecting data, and instead of interviewing people in person, it's all taking place over Zoom, and we're collecting data on various survey platforms and things like that. And so the training is just, the training, I mean, we are at a basic level, we are still person to person. When you get trained on these things, it's just going to be talking individually, sharing each other's screens, things like that. So you would learn and then you would be implementing. So all the same things that you would learn for in-person research, you will learn for remote research. and it's just, you know, like, and it's honestly, it helps a lot if, you know, if when you're having your meetings, have your videos on, you know, and just, you know, like, and that's the big, you know, and that happens in the lab stuff. It doesn't happen as much in the classes, because it's being recorded and people are like, oh wait, if it's getting recorded, then all of our personal videos are being recorded, you know? And so it is, and people, then that's naturally, you know, but when you're doing your stuff for your lab, those things aren't being recorded. It's really just a connection point. And your Zoom fatigue is much less when you are working with a small group of people and you enjoy being in each other's company.
I totally agree. This seems to be like a not only like something that will help you advance, but like a very strong and emotional support that many students lack in the university, especially if, you know, they're first generation students. And right now, based on the environment and what's going on around us, I think it's way beneficial than what it does. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Brianna, Bethany, did you guys have any questions before we sort of really more run out of time? Well, this has been fun, and thank you, Danny, for all of your questions. I'm sure that it's always helpful because usually everybody else has the same questions too, and you just were really great in asking them. So thank you for that.
No,
And
thank you for your time.
I will be, you know, like looking for your emails and getting to the ones that I've already gotten. Thank you, Angel already left, but thank you, Shayna, for coming. And this will be really great and fun for us to talk about on Tuesday.
Yes, thank you all so much for your time, Dr. Levens, Shayna, Angel, and you students to hang in there and ask those good questions and think through all the options. There's lots of good possibilities, and this is definitely one of those rich opportunities that we have available and very well taken care of by Dr. Levens. So,
oh, thank you, Dr. Chiarella.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, I'll go ahead and end then if there aren't any more questions, but otherwise, thank you all so very much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Have a great week.
Congrats, Dr. Chiarella, on finishing everything.